going to call to order the meeting of the Camarillo City Council. And I'm going to ask for a roll call, please.
Councilmember Craven?
Here.
Councilmember Kilby?
Here.
Councilmember Tremblay? Here. Vice Mayor Santangelo?
Here.
And Mayor Mulchay.
Present. So the purposes of our convening here at 4 o'clock, a little early today, is for the purposes of going into closed session on some items. I'm going to ask the city attorney if he can please recite the reasons for going into closed session.
Yeah, we have 3 closed sessions today. One is a conference with real property negotiator. The authority is Government Code Section 54956.8. The property is located at 4561 Valerio Way. The agency negotiators are the city manager and the city attorney. Negotiating parties are listed in the agenda. Under negotiation are price and terms of payment. Our second item is a conference with legal counsel anticipated litigation. That's significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2. Number of potential cases is 1. And the third closed session is public employee performance evaluation. That's authorized by Government Code Section 54957, and the title is City Attorney.
Thank you very much. Do we have any public comment? Nothing submitted. I don't see anyone here in the room. So at this time, we are going to recess into closed session, and we will be back at 5 o'clock for a regular agenda.
Okay, I'd like to call the Camarillo Board of Library Trustees, a regular board meeting for October 26th to order, please. Let's do a flag salute. How about, Sean, would you like to lead us tonight in the flag salute?
With pleasure. If everyone can please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, your right hand over your heart, and begin.
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
All right, approval of the agenda, I believe that's okay. Go down to public comments. This is for the library. Is anyone here for public comments in the library? All right, we'll move down to the consent calendar.
Move the approval.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Passes 5-0. Oral communication, any updates from, oh, there we are, yes. Thank you.
So good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, City Council, and staff. On August 1st, the library welcomed a new Russell Fisher Business Services Coordinator, Megan Profeta. So Megan holds a Master of Arts in Education and has many years of experience in education with the University of Alaska, Anchorage, and the Anchorage Museum. Megan has a strong background in creating programs and workshops on a variety of topics for different age groups. She moved to Camarillo a year ago with her family from Anchorage, Alaska. In addition, Megan is a co-owner of a small IT business in Camarillo with her husband. In the short months that she's been here, Megan has also been making connections with local organizations such as the Women's Economic Ventures and Economic Development Collaborative. Since her start in August, Megan has facilitated 7 programs, fielded 32 reference queries, and attended 61 meetings with outside organizations. Megan is currently working with the library's marketing coordinator on a social media program featuring workplace holiday etiquette. She looks forward to bringing in more programs focusing on small business, career help, and personal finance. Recently, the Camarillo Public Library received a grant of $4,375 from the California State Library to support our idea of a Camarillo's Great Outdoors initiative. The Camarillo's Great Outdoors is encouraging community members and library patrons to explore and visit local hiking trails, fishing, and beach activities in the surrounding area. With this grant funding, the library will be offering circling items for exploration, such as these kids' backpacks.
Wow.
So each backpack has a different theme. Today, I'm bringing our wildflower backpack, which has a set of binoculars, compass, magnifying glass, and a guide. And it comes with a book. Also, in addition to the backpacks, each kid who checks out the backpacks can get their own notebook to observe the flowers or the animals that they see that they can get to keep. In addition to the backpacks, we're going to have 2 beach coolers that people can take to the beach, and that will have family activities such as kites, paddle boards, and things like that. And in addition, with the grant funding, we'll be offering natural education programming for all ages. And that concludes my report, and I'm happy to address any questions.
Thank you. Any, welcome. Did I hear right? Was it Alaska? Wow, it's a long ways away. Oh, great. You came for the fishing, right? Not the weather, right? Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. Any other comments or anything? All right, well, thanks for the...
Welcome
and
aboard.
Welcome aboard, thank you. All right. Any other oral communication of any trustees tonight? Okay, so with that, we'll adjourn.
Call the meeting of the Camarillo Sanitary District Board of Directors to order and ask the record to reflect that all board members are present. Is there any changes to the agenda? Public comments. Would anybody like to speak to the Camarillo Sanitary District Board? I don't have any cards. I don't see anybody rising or coming forward, so we'll move on to the consent calendar.
I'll move the approval of consent.
Second. Motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Please vote. Assuming Mr. Kildee is voting yes, it's unanimous approval. Oral communications? Hear none. Okay, we have one item left. We will take that up later when the city council takes up the transfer of remaining city and sanitary district electricity accounts from SCE to CPA. And so with that, we will recess.
And I'm going to reconvene the meeting of the Camarillo City Council and let the record reflect that all council members are present. Do we have any amendments to this agenda? I'll take the deafening silence as no. And we'll move on to presentations. Item D, I have a presentation by Edgardo Vasquez, who's going to present Conejo Grade, a painting called Conejo Grade, and I think we have some comments from Councilmember Tremblay. Are you going to lead us off, Mr. Tremblay? Or?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Maybe we could call upon Mr. Vasquez first,
Okay,
if that's appropriate, and then I will have some comments,
perfect.
if I might.
Good evening, Mr. Vasquez, and your mic should be on there.
It is a pleasure to be here. First, I'll represent all the veterans from Leisure Village. I'll give you a short story. Okay. When I first came to Leisure Village, two high-ranking retired people came to me and twisted my arm to be the first president of the Leisure Village Club. So I initiated the present Veterans Club that's still going. After that, just a short, I was the president of the Ham Radio Club, the RV Club, and I worked for the city of Camarillo Police Department. And I have a card that was given to me back in 2003 from this office that I lived in Camarillo, and they wanted to verify that I lived in Camarillo, because I was going to work for the Sheriff's Department on security. So that ends that part. And well, here it is. Mayor, members of the City Council, city staff, and family members. It is an honor to accept an award, especially at my age of 93,000 miles, and which has an extended warranty of 1 day at a time. Yes, it was a pleasure in my heart, because it was Memorial Day when I got inspired in doing this presentation. And the thing about it is...
Could you pull the microphone over so we can hear you?
Okay, let me... What got me to thinking is that you get mesmerized. If you look at that at night, it looks like diamonds coming down a river. And I says, how can I simulate that? I went to a beauty shop. I said, what can I do for sparklers? He says, well, the ladies buy little stars for their fingernails and other colors. So that's what I did. I used silver stars coming down and red stars going up for taillights. But the best part was that Conejo Grade is in a very historic Camarillo, California. One of my first things that I did when I came to California, visit the home of Don Adolfo Camarillo, and I did a bronze simulation of his horse on Sultan, and you have one in the office here, and one at the Camarillo Ranch. And then after that, the brain just kept going, and I did a bust of Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan, and it's aboard the aircraft carrier. So that's encompass. That's my report for you. Or you have questions, I'll be glad to answer questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vasquez. Any questions before? And I know Mr. Tremblay has some comments I think he wants to share as well. But Mr. Kildee?
So how did you get the inspiration? I mean, it's so well done as far as the detail. How did you get that level of detail in your mind and put it,
Well-
in practice?
Every week, I have to, well, it's an honor. I take my wife for a hair appointment, and I park the car facing the mountains, and I said, I have to do something about it. So that's how it came about. I just got mesmerized with that event, and people need to know it. But Camarillo is a beautiful place. I came here in 1960, and I got employed by the Point Magoo Pacific Missile Test Center as a test conductor. I retired as a test conductor and range operations supervisor. I flew for 22 years aboard super constellations and all the Pacific and South America and Atlantic. I was a telemetry technician, and I just came, it was just right that I was involved in all the beginning of the NASA programs. You may remember John Glenn, his first flight around the moon, around the Earth. And I get confused because also, just before I retired, I was a splash point when the first astronauts returned from the flight of the moon. And so I have mileage. Any other questions?
Not, I got a lot of questions, but I won't, I'll ask them later. Go ahead. Yeah.
Mr. Tremblay?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, well, we have a PowerPoint for you, Eddie, because first of all, it is a great privilege to represent all of the city residents on this council, and in particular the residents of Leisure Village. I know that a lot of you are here tonight. I think my colleagues would agree that during our time on the city council, we meet a lot of special people in Camarillo. And one of those people, Eddie, is you, who I've met.
Thank you.
You are humble and an incredibly talented multimedia artist. And if, Carrie, am I doing this right? Let's see. There we go. So we appreciate so much, Eddie, you're taking the time to create this. And I meant multimedia and sculpture, bronze, painting, et cetera. We appreciate so much your providing this painting to us, which will hang at City Hall. I want my colleagues to know that Eddie has assured me, even though I spend so much time on the Ventura County Transportation Commission as its chair this year, he has assured me that is not an inference as to our southbound 101 traffic in the afternoon. All those points of light. So you were very nice to me about that. But just a few of the things. Eddie is a skilled artist in, as I said, painting, sculpture, photography, sketching, bronze sculpture. I did not inherit that DNA. I don't have that DNA. But one thing that has always incredibly impressed me, and that is Eddie's design and installation of the consecrated colors for the Leisure Village Veterans Memorial in January of 2000. And if you look at the upper right-hand side, those are all military badges and awards worn by veterans.
Of the actual veterans.
Of the actual veterans. And then if you ever have time, please take a look at that. It's a wonderful, it's been there now for, my goodness, 22 years, but it is a wonderful memorial for our nation's colors. And Eddie, of course, being very humble, did not, I think, specifically mention, but he served in the United States Army for 4 years, and then was a 32 years as a test conductor at Point Magoo. And I know that Eddie, I know that at the risk of embarrassing you, aside from all of your involvement in Leisure Village, your founding of the Veterans Club, your being president of the ham radio and the RV clubs, you also created, and it's now on the aircraft carrier USS Reagan, a bust of President Reagan. And you may not also know this, and that is that Eddie and Dorothy, over many years, Dorothy, I can't see her from there. Hi, Dorothy, sorry. Will go to local restaurants. And Eddie, being a wonderfully talented artist, would sketch pictures of the little children and then give them to the parents, which the parents really appreciated. And that's something that I know that you're known for. So I rarely meet someone who is so kind and patriotic. So I want to say thank you for your wonderful painting that you presented to the city. Thank you for your service to our community. Thank you for our service to our nation. And I'm very proud to know you. That's the first time I've heard 90. I'm going to remember the extended warranty or the extended day. That's a great way to put it. And again, we sincerely appreciate you thinking of us and presenting this painting to us. And
Can you go back to the flag, please?
if I figure out how to do it, there you go.
Yes. This is not known, but I did it. The flagpole did not have a flag, a eagle on the top of the flagpole. So I went to McDonald's and says, "Where do you get your eagles?" He says, "Oh, here's an address, you can pick one up." Well, it was aluminum, and it just did not last. I took it, and they duplicated it in bronze. But I modified it. On the eye of the eagle, I put a synthetic ruby. If it's right, I took a picture. When the sun is right, that ruby just sparkles out. But anyway, it'll be there forever. So that's my rendition.
Thank you again for your service, Eddie, to our community and our country. And obviously, we want to thank you for this beautiful painting, and we will proudly display it here at City Hall. So thank you, and thank you for all of you who came out tonight.
And also, there might be, every time we go to the restaurants, yes, I paint. I've been sketching children for 35 years. And sometimes I'm doing it twice. I said, "You did that, my daughter, last year." Says, "I don't know, we have any."
Oh.
Do you have somebody here that?
All I can think of, Eddie, is that we have an 18-month-old grandson, and I think he would be squirming an awful lot. But in all sincerity,
Again, it's been a privilege and an honor before you that, like I said, 93,000 miles. And my wife and my sisters here, we're all in the 90s celebrating this occasion.
and thank you, Dorothy, and thank you, Eddie's sister, whose first name I do not know. And thank you to all of you from Leisure Village who's been here.
Now, before you go anywhere,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
thank you. I just want to say really quickly, thank you for your service, Mr. Vasquez. Thank you for not only your service to our country, but also service to our community. And it can't be understated. What you painted, the Conejo grade, and you're absolutely right in everything you described. The most valuable piece of real estate, I think, in Camarillo is that parking lot in Woodside Market, facing the grade at approximately, like, maybe, I find myself there because I get a donut at Daniel's Donuts occasionally. That's my guilty indulgence. But I'll park facing the grade, and I'll take maybe 3 minutes before I go to my busy, hectic workday. And I'll just sit there, and sometimes at 6 o'clock, depending on what time of year it is, you have the sun you just kind of see just the light coming. You don't see the sun yet, but you have the light coming over the grade, and you still have that sparkle of the car's headlights coming down. And I don't know, it is mesmerizing. It just puts you at ease. It's so comfortable, and for one moment, it's like all the worries and all the issues in the world just kind of go away. And it's like, you're just in a trance. So it's apt that you captured that, and that's what you chose to paint, and you see the beauty in that. If you want, I'm going to have you come in. I would like you to present it really quick. And usually it's the mayor. It often goes, but I'm gonna ask something out of order. I'm going to ask if my colleagues will indulge me really quick if we can all take a picture with you in your painting. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. My honor was yours.
We're going to have a staging place for it. Oh, Christy? Christy? Oh, okay. Thank you very much. It's personal moments and presentations and things like that that help really break up the monotony of everything else that we do day in, day out during these meetings, so. All right, with that, we are going to go to consent calendar.
Move the approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Please vote. And that passes unanimously.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
we might want to ask our guests that we have a wonderful and full agenda if they wanted to stick around, but they shouldn't feel any necessity to do so.
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Feel free to excuse yourselves. Although it is a riveting agenda, I won't take any offense. Okay, with that, we're going to start our public hearings with item S, public initiation procedure for zoning ordinance amendments. All right, and presenting to us, Mr. George Winkler. Hello, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. So tonight, I'm George Winkler, Economic Development Manager for City of Camarillo. And tonight, we're here in consideration of a proposed amendment to the zoning ordinance of the Camarillo Municipal Code, Chapter 19.72, that would create a public initiation procedure for a zoning ordinance text amendment. So a zoning ordinance text amendment, or I'll call it a ZOA, allows for the modification of the municipal code sections that may limit the city's potential to accommodate new, existing, and expanding businesses. The process currently includes a planning commission public hearing and a resolution with a recommendation to city council, followed by a city council public hearing and possible adoption of an ordinance. Currently, Chapter 19.72 only allows for the initiation of ZOAs by the Planning Commission or City Council. Staff also recommends municipal code amendments, and the creation of a public initiation procedure would further the city's goals for business development and friendliness. So in July, staff made a presentation to the Economic Development and Land Use Committee for consideration of a concept to create a public initiation procedure for a ZOA. The committee unanimously concurred that an amendment to the municipal code to create a public initiation procedure aligns with the city's economic development strategies. In September, the Planning Commission adopted resolution number 2022-14 recommending approval of the ordinance to the City Council to create a public initiation procedure for a ZOA with a vote of 4 in favor and 1 absent. So the proposed ordinance provides a framework for the city to explore new concepts and is a best practice. For example, the cities of Thousand Oaks, Moore Park, and Simi Valley all have similar procedures for publicly initiated zoning ordinance text amendments. So the proposed ordinance would include new procedures that allow for the property owner or their designated representative to apply for a ZOA. The process is generally outlined as follows. Parties interested in pursuing a ZOA may make a request through a form submission to the Community Development Department. Staff would conduct an initial review and draft a brief report on the suggested ZOA to be presented to the Economic Development and Land Use Committee. This initial review is similar to a pre-application and comes at no cost to the applicant. The committee would review and provide non-binding feedback on the proposed ZOA, and it would be made clear that this is only providing an insight into how 2 of the 5 city council members would support the item. If the applicant opts to proceed with the request, an application fee would be then due to the Community Development Department for the official ZOA review. This report and resolution recommending approval of an ordinance to City Council would then be presented to the Planning Commission at a public hearing, and the feedback from the committee and the Planning Commission's recommendation would then be provided to City Council for your consideration at a public hearing. If adopted, the municipal code would then be updated to reflect the changes to the zone. So the proposed ordinance is consistent with our economic development strategic plan. The existing business retention and expansion strategies include finding ways to approve projects that are good for the city's economic health and its residents. And our real estate and community development strategies calls for more flexibility in our codes. The proposed ordinance is also consistent with council's goals and objectives for fiscal year 22-23, one of which is to maintain a positive environment for the expansion and retention of existing business through staff assistance and the efficient processing of proposals. So the recommendation is as displayed here, and that concludes staff presentation.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Craven.
Yes, you said Thousand Oaks and some other cities had a similar ordinance. Do you have any idea how often that this is used? How many times the public has made recommendations this way or requests?
Yes, Councilmember Craven. Typically about 1 or 2 requests per year.
Thank you.
Mr. Kildee?
Yeah. A little bit on that lines. George, do you know, is there any data that the cities that have implemented this, if they've received an uptick in the amount of volume that has happened through this?
Councilmember Kildee, no, it's just, they've all had it in place for a while, and it's just a pretty consistent flow.
And just so I can be clear, the procedures really remain the same. In other words, this is just adding another tool to the toolbox to be able to have somebody, an individual, bring forth, I'll call it an idea for lack of a better term, but the procedures on how it goes through really has very minimal, if any, change?
That's correct. The only addition would really be the Economic Development Land Use Committee review, and our City Council policy really describes that committee as a reviewing body for any proposed amendments to the municipal code.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
And I'll just simply add, because this went through Economic Development and Land Use, in which the Vice Mayor and I sit on, and I'll try to best summarize briefly our thoughts in considering moving this to City Council. We thought it'd be more, formalize a process to be more responsive to individuals in the business community. Oftentimes we see this more and more as of late. the economy and businesses and their uses are ever-changing. They're accelerating. It's more dynamic than it ever has been. And oftentimes, I think the city kind of finds itself on its back heel or late to respond or whatnot. Here, we can be a little bit more proactive. We can allow the public to formally come and present an idea or a suggestion, whether it's for themselves or their particular business interests. But yes, you're right, Mr. Kildee, that the city, the planning commission, the city council still retain that authority. We are still ultimately gatekeepers of that ordinance, and it still has to go through the proper channels. But this is just another way to better align with our economic development strategic plan and be more responsive to the ever-changing needs of our business community. Does the Vice Mayor have anything to add?
No.
Oh, okay. Any additional questions? No. All right, this is a public hearing. So I'm going to open the public hearing. And I'm sorry, give me 1 second. I do have one comment card. Gary Barnett, if you can come. The podium microphone is on. Gary, I think you've spoken to us plenty of times before.
Correct.
Yeah, so you'll have 3 minutes. It'll count down at 1 minute. Beeper. You got it. I know you got it.
Thank you. Well, thank you for letting me speak. I wondered whether my comments might be premature. My name is Jerry Barnett. I'm a homeowner of Camarillo Mobile Home Park, and it's known also as Camarillo Mobile Estates. The mention was that this was to benefit the business community. I'm not part of a business in the city. But as you know, our park was purchased by an outside investor in 2020. Because of the investor's maintenance record in our park, the homeowners are concerned that he plans to close the park and convert the land to some other use. We know that this investor does own apartment complexes. I was told by the city staff that the current zoning would not allow apartments on the land. I was also told by city staff that since mobile homeowners are not real property owners in the city does not have a requirement to communicate with us directly about some of these issues as they are with real property owners. One of my requests would be that you look into the possibility of requiring the notification and direct communication of us that are homeowners but not real property owners in a mobile home park. So this request may be premature, but I think there are some zoning changes that might be suggested by people that are not business owners in the city. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't have any other comment cards. Does anyone else in the chambers like to come and speak on this item? Otherwise, I will close the public hearing, and I will turn to my colleagues for additional questions or discussion.
Just reading the title.
Nope, all right. I'm going to request a reading of the title then.
This is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Camarillo, California, amending the Camarillo Municipal Code to create a public initiation procedure for a zoning ordinance text amendment.
I'll move to waive the reading, introduced ordinance amending Camarillo Municipal Code Chapter 19.72 to create a public initiation procedure for a zoning ordinance text amendment.
Second.
All right, with that I have a motion and a second. Please vote. And that passes unanimously and takes us down to discussion items. Item T, transfer remaining city and sanitary district. We'll open up sanitary district electricity accounts from SCE to CPA. And Ms.
I'll call a meeting of the Sanitary District Board back to order.
Thank you very much. And we have a presentation from staff. Good evening, Roger.
Good evening, Your Honor, council members, City Manager Ramirez, City Attorney Pierrick, and staff. The item before you this evening has to do with a discussion to transfer 115 electricity accounts from Southern California Edison to the Clean Power Alliance. A little bit of background: in May of 2019, CPA became the default electricity provider for non-residential customers in the city of Camarillo. In June 2019, due to significant cost increases, electrical accounts for the city and the CSD in the rate classes depicted in the staff report before you were chosen by council and the CSD board not to participate in the Clean Power Alliance. A few years later, in January of 2022, the City Council directed staff to prepare a cost analysis of transferring the remaining electrical accounts from Edison to CPA 100% green product. In March of 2022, to further advance the city's environmental efforts, the City Council approved changing the community's default rate product from lean to green. Not too long after that, last month, matter of fact, the Utilities Committee met on October 6th and directed staff to refer the item before you to the City Council for further discussion. Combined, the city and CSD have approximately 115 electrical accounts receiving Edison bundled service. The cost analysis shown on page 2 of the staff report indicates that transferring the remaining electrical accounts to CPA's green product will result in an estimated annual cost increase of approximately $326,000. If you break that out, $240,000 approximately would be from the general fund and lighting and landscaping district fund. So the cost increase would be to that fund, the water utility fund of approximately $17,000, and the sanitary district fund approximately $70,000 annually. So approximately 73% of the cost is attributed to the procurement of renewable energy, while 27% is attributed to the PCIA charge. Whether the customer procures electricity from Edison or CPA, all customers pay delivery and transmission charges to Edison, as well as various non-bypassable charges, such as the DWR bond charge, nuclear decommissioning charge, and the public purpose charge. For more details, you can reference the frequently asked question attachment to the agenda report. So tonight's recommendation is for council to provide staff with direction on transferring the remaining city and sanitary districts' electricity accounts from Edison to the CPA's green product, and if the direction is to transfer the accounts, to also approve an appropriation from the respective fund balances to the appropriate account numbers for the estimated electricity cost increase to the general fund, including lighting and landscape fund, the Camarillo Sanitary District Fund. That concludes staff's presentation. Be happy to answer questions.
All right, and I'm going to look for questions from council. I know this is, no? Questions? Mr. Kildee, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, Roger, what's the timeline if in fact you want to pivot? In other words, are you able to pivot during the year? Are there specific months that you have to wait, or is it kind of open-ended?
So customers can opt out of CPA service and return to bundle service at any time. So when an account is switched from CPA to bundled Edison service, SCE requires a 6-month transition period before the account is placed on a regular Edison generation rate. And during that 6-month transition period, customers have 2 options for their generation rates. So for instance, option 1, if you want to immediately go back to Edison, then you would be transitioned into their transitional bundled service generation rates. So what that means is that your rates would fluctuate for the next 6 months, so you wouldn't have a flat rate. It could be higher or lower, so it's very risky to go with option one. Option two would be that you wait for the 6-month period, and then once you hit that 6-month period, then you would be transitioned back to Edison's bundled rates, which are, rates that are not going to fluctuate with the market.
And is that public entities, is that the same kind of scenario with the public entities as well?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mrs. Kramer?
Well, I'm a little bit confused. I thought we were talking about moving from Edison to the CPA, but you answered his question how it would be if you moved from the CPA back to Edison.
I think did I misunderstand?
Yeah, no, he didn't. That's what I was saying. Do we have an opportunity to pivot? And if we do, what
Okay.
is the timeline on that?
Okay. And so I'm going to ask the same question, but going the other way. Do we have a certain time that we can go to the CPA, or is it any time?
It's the same process either way.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Tremblay?
Yeah, just a brief process question, Mr. Mayor. Roger, you discussed the Utilities Committee when the Utilities Committee considered the matter. And as the staff report notes, the committee directed staff to refer to the item to City Council. But there was no recommendation from the committee, correct?
That's correct.
In other words, we kicked it over to the full council to discuss. Thank you.
Roger, one question. At what point do we peg this, the estimated cost increase? At what point in time is that pegged to? Like right now? What we're paying right now?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so what'll end up happening is Edison is supposed to adjust their rates effective January 1st. And January 1st, these particular rates that you have before you, those cost increase, are going to be more comparable to Edison's. Theirs goes up, CPAs remain the same, but only for a short period of time, depending on, what CPA decides to do in June when they do their rate setting to go in effect July 1st, 2023.
So to be clear, this is pegged towards Edison's costs now, but in January, Edison's going to raise their rates.
Yes.
So this 326 that delta is going to shrink. There should be less daylight between CPA's rates and Edison's
Correct.
rates.
That's our understanding from the information that we recently obtained from the CPA staff.
Do you know approximately by how much?
I don't have that figure yet. It's too premature, but the joint rate comparison is going to be available. My understanding is first week in December. So we'll have a better idea then. But one of the things that I'll go out on a limb and say is that with the exception of the streetlights, the cost for that, it's still not going to, it's going to be a little bit more comparable to CPAs, but it's still, the assumption is that it's going to be higher if we go. So if we were to bring those back later, after January 1st, the concept is that it would still cost us more, but if we were to bring the other ones back, it may not be as costly as the streetlights.
Now, I know we've reduced the electricity costs for our streetlights I would say substantially. I know relative, it's maybe small numbers, but somewhere to the tune of $300,000 for the last 2 years since we retrofitted all of our 4,500 city, or I should say SCE-owned streetlights with LED fixtures. So our aside from the fact that electricity rates are going up, comparatively, we are reducing our use of electricity, at least in the streetlights, and so our relative costs have come down as a result.
So consumption has been reduced. We're on a different tariff or rate. So when we were with the high-pressure sodium vapor lights, we were at a higher rate and we were consuming more. So now that we've transitioned and retrofitted those lights, now we're at a different tariff, which is a lower per kilowatt hour. So lower, and then you achieve those savings. So yeah, overall, we've reduced the amount of energy that we are consuming and pulling from the grid.
Yeah, go ahead.
And we're also realizing those savings that you just mentioned.
Right, yeah, it's about $300,000 over slightly less than 2 years. Those savings, albeit aren't reflected in here, understandably, because of how we're measuring it. But we have been able to successfully reduce our costs and energy consumption, at least when it comes to the streetlights.
Carbon footprint as well.
Yes. Mrs. Craven and Mr. Tremblay.
This $326,000, does that include both the cost of electricity and the cost of transmission?
Correct, yes.
So if Edison raises its rates, is it likely to say they're going to be raising the cost of transmission as well as the cost of the electricity?
If whatever Edison does, if they raise their, let's just say right now, so just to be precise here, when Edison raises their rates in January, that's going to be, it's due to the fact that they undercollected in the year 2022. So what that means is that Edison requested from the PUC authorization to recover those costs that they weren't made whole. So then, for instance, they undercollected by, I think, $800 million in the current calendar year. So that's why they're going to be raising their rates January 1st. So
And is that only for the electricity they're selling, or is that for electricity and transmission?
That's just for cost recovery.
Well, I know, but they got two parts to the rate, so I'm wondering if they didn't collect enough for transmission as well as for producing the electricity or selling the electricity, or do you know?
I can't answer that question because I don't know the exact answer.
Thank you.
Mr. Tremblay?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Roger, this is complicated in the sense, and first of all, my gratitude to Councilmember Santangelo for serving on the CPA board, because I support us being on the within the CPA. But then we may have some different opinions on this one. But is it fair to say, though, Roger, as far as the dimension from Edison relative to CPA, those rates fluctuate from year to year? In other words, 1 year CPA's rates may be electric rates may be a little higher, and the next year SCE's rates may be a little higher. At least that's what we've encountered the first 3-4 years of this historical experiment. Is that a fair statement?
It's fair.
Okay. And is it also fair to say, though, that in this case, what we're talking about here is going from lean to green in terms of the electricity component of that? We're casting aside anything relative to transmission, the T&D, the transmission and distribution component. And is it also fair to say that that cost trajectory for Edison has been going steadily up in an upward trajectory for the last several years because they're doing wildfire hardening and hardening of their infrastructure in fighting wildfire, or for wildfire prevention and for other reasons, right? That's a fair statement?
Very fair, yes.
Okay. Edison, because I just got my Edison bill, they have a new rates application in that bill. But that's not the one for this January, is it?
My understanding is that it is.
It is, though. Okay, I just want to make sure that I confirm that. If in fact it's approved by the Public Utilities Commission, right? Because it's still subject to going through the entire PUC process. Okay, all right. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Additional questions? If no more questions, then we can get to comments. This is a discussion item.
Anybody
so
in the
we-
public want to talk?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't have any comment cards. Is there anyone like to speak on this topic? Okay. I'll go.
You have your chance.
Ms. Santangelo.
I wanted to add a little, not to steal your thunder, Roger, but we had a CPA executive committee meeting last week, and during that meeting, Ted, who's the CEO, shared with us some of the forecasting for next year, at least from Edison. So they have undercollected between $700 and $800 million again, and that is going to probably end up with them having to increase their energy generation rate 20%. The other piece of this is that the PCIA, which is that legacy charge, which accounts for a large portion of that difference, is going to be in the negative next year, which means CPA customers will have a credit if that goes through. So both of those things combined are, at least from CPA's magic ball, they're forecasting that all three of the energy levels for CPA are going to be less than Edison next year. So that's something to take into consideration because, of course, these numbers are are figured at the rates that they are right now. So it's not a promise, it's not a guarantee, but over the past couple of years, our forecasting has been pretty right on. So I just wanted to share that this added amount of money is probably significantly less, at least as I understand it. I'm not going to do my usual CPA. I think everybody's fairly clear where I stand with CPA and that I believe climate change is an emergency and that we should, as cities, should be doing all that we can. We've already decided as a council that this is where our residents should be with CPA and at the 100%. So for me, this is a no-brainer because I believe that we should be doing as much as we can for climate change at the city level as well as our residents. I think we should be leaders, and I think we should be leaders within our own community, and I think it's really difficult to ask our residents to be okay with CPA if we aren't as a city. So I support this. I don't think that this amount of money is going to be as high as it is, and it's the right thing to do. Mr. Tremblay pointed out the reality that rates will change every year somewhat. But that's why I think this decision is more about the principle of it and the value of it to our climate and to our environment. I think it's more important for us to look at it in that sense and to look at it as the future of our city and our community. So that's where I stand. Thank you.
Okay, just Mrs. Craven.
Sure. Yes, I don't support the transfer. First of all, we did select the 100% green, but any of our residents can move out of that at any time they want. And so I have always felt that I should treat the public's money even more conservatively than I would my own. I know there are estimates as to what this could be next year or that could be next year, but my practice has always been to go with the packet that's provided to me unless somebody stands up and says, this is absolutely wrong. Here is what it's going to be instead. And I don't have an alternative packet, so I'm going by that packet. There's no way I would treat my own money and sign up for $25,000 more than it would cost if I didn't change. And so I just cannot support doing that with the public's money.
Mr. Tremblay.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. First of all, again, Susan, I really appreciate your service on Clean Power Alliance. And by the way, when you said them and they, I think you were referring to Southern California Edison and not to Clean Power Alliance. It always, in terms of the undercollection, it always astonishes me that a shareholder-owned utility can year after year after year undercollect somewhere between $700 million to $800 million. It just astonishes me, but Be that as it may, that's Edison's track record. But that also points out the fact that this is a multidimensional, it's not just, it's changing providers of the electricity, it's also changing the percentage and going, for example, from lean to green. That said, I agree with Mrs. Craven. I did not support our decision in March to go from lean to green. And I did not support that because of what I felt was the adverse economic impact on our residents, notwithstanding the ability to opt out. And for that same reason, I don't support this. Increasing, with just the numbers that we have in front of us, increasing the burden on the general fund by a minimum of $325,000 per year, to me, I don't believe is fiscally responsible to the general fund and to the burden on our residents. And so I'm going to oppose this as well. Thank you.
Okay.
And Mr. Khalil?
I look at budgets all the time. I'm a private business owner. I understand a lot of hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. I get all that. It's very expensive money. The reason why I did support this, it gives our residents an opportunity to pivot. That's why I asked Roger the question whether the city would be able to do that too. There's been a lot of talk about global warming and a lot of things that has been going on with the environment here. I think this is our opportunity to do a little something that we can do. And I don't take the $250,000 to $350,000 that it's going to cost us lightly. That's a lot of money, and I really, really understand that. This will make us consistent with what we did 6-8 months ago. It does allow, and I want to make sure that, future councils can look into this and have a discussion like we've had tonight, because I think it's very important to discuss this. There may be a right answer to this, there may be a wrong answer to this, I don't know, but I think we have to look at the data that we have before us. I'm willing to see if it will work, but I do want to have the option that if in fact these costs do get way out of line, I don't know what they're going to be, none of us do, it's a little bit of a moving target, that we have an opportunity to pivot and have another discussion on that. So with all of that said, and I respect everybody's thoughts on this, obviously it doesn't come easy. It's a challenge. You can spend $100,000 pretty easy up here, and I don't take that lightly. That's a lot of money, I get that. But I think it does make it consistent with what at least the majority's thoughts were, with the opportunity to pivot and take a look at it at a future date. So with all of that, at this point, I'll support this.
And that leaves me in my comments. Just to get it out there, I first and foremost, I support this. It's going to come a little ironic because I'm all about numbers, and I tend to be a rather dollars and cents kind of guy. That's half of our job. Half of our job is to manage the purse strings and be fiscally prudent with taxpayer funds and the like. The other half of that is also to make decisions that impact the health and safety of our community, things that are not so easily tangible. But we know that it's the right decision. We know it's the right direction. We know it's the future. And that's something I'm willing to, I don't see it as an expense, I see it as an investment. Kevin, you and I both have our own businesses, and at the end of the day, you have a P&L, and you've got to try to eke a profit. And the idea is to maximize your profit. I run 20,000 square feet of high-powered machinery here in Camarillo. Still, our business is going to go with CPA. We are transitioning to 100% green. We've invested tens of thousands of dollars in retrofitting our entire warehouse into LEDs. The payback, I'm putting a lot of money up front, but I know that it's an investment. I think it's the right thing to do, and it's better for the future. So not everything is about money. In this case, I genuinely do think that in the long term, it will be, from a money sense, I think it will be a very fruitful investment. It will be good for our community. I think clean energy is going to be a lot more stable. It is obviously a lot more sustainable. And it has shown that it's likely going to be lower cost. So it's about getting to scale. By moving to 100% clean energy, we are signaling, first off, we're signaling to our community that we're not going to sit up here and make decisions and say something is good for thee but not for me. I think, if we were to not transition to 100% energy for the city, I think that's a statement we'd be making to our community, and that would be a hypocritical one. But City of Camarillo is good. We like to talk about, we have a spoil of riches. It doesn't mean that we can just spend it willy-nilly. We've always been very good conservatively in how we spend our money, how we allocate those funds, that we make sure that we make proper investments and we're getting a proper return on our investment. And that's what I see this as. I see this as an investment. And I think it's a return that it will be very, very fruitful. It'll be good for our community. It'll be good for our safety or our health. And I think it sends the right signal. So that we embrace the future and that Camarillo is willing to lead and not wait for everyone else and be the last to adapt something. So with that, I'm going to vote to support this. With that, I'm going to entertain a motion if there is one.
I'll move the suggested actions, 1 and 2. Is 1 enough?
And this will be for the city, because we'll take a separate vote for the sanitary district.
Okay.
Sorry.
So is it one motion enough for both suggested actions?
I think that's appropriate. It has been in the past. City Attorney?
That's fine.
Cities first.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes.
And do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion and a second. If no further discussion, please vote. And that'll pass 3-2 with Mrs. Craven and Mr. Tremblay dissenting.
And I will take a motion for the sanitary district.
I'll move to approve the recommended actions.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Please vote. I'm assuming Mr. Kildee votes yes. I just can't see what you have down there. I'm sorry. That passes 3-2 with Mr. Tremblay and myself dissenting. And with that, I will close the Camarillo Sanitary District meeting.
And the city council will continue on to item U, and that is what I think most people here in the audience are for. Authorize the transfer and development agreement for 3100 Ponderosa Drive, formerly the Camarillo Library, between the city and Kidstream. And I know I have public comments. We have a staff report? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. This report is requesting City Council's authorization to execute an agreement between the city and Kidstream for the transfer and development of city property at 3100 Ponderosa Drive, known as the former Camarillo Library. My colleague Jackie Lee, Planning Manager, is available for any questions pertaining to the project, and Michael Shanklin, Executive Director for Kidstream, will also present information regarding the project. I see Kidstream board members also present among the audience, and I do believe we have some speaker cards on the item. In 2015, the city conducted a surplus property disposition process consistent with California Government Code, specifically the Surplus Land Act. And in 2017, the city and Kidstream entered into an exclusive negotiating agreement to determine the feasibility of developing the property into a children's museum. In 2018, the city and Kidstream entered into a term sheet for the sale of the property at the market rate price of $900,000 under the specific use of a children's museum and with certain conditions listed in that term sheet. Two subsequent amendments amended the project schedule, and additionally, under the second amendment, the City Council approved the transfer of the property by donation because of the public benefit that would it bring to the community. As a children's museum, the activities and the education for children would be through the various exhibits, the various activities, including STEM programming, and also include opportunities for educators as an educating experience to enhance their education, and also provide for an event space for community events. The donation of the property allowed Kidstream to leverage funding for the planning and the development of the project. As a requirement of the acquisition, or a requirement of the acquisition is clearly laid out in the proposed agreement, also in the grant deed, and also in the CUP. And that is, which is the city's issuance of a conditional use permit. The conditional use permit will be reviewed by the Planning Commission on December 6th. However, in order to not trigger a new disposition process as specified in the most current Surplus Land Act regulation, which was amended in 2019, the transfer of the property must be effectuated by December 31. That the Planning Commission will be reviewing the conditional use permit on December 6th doesn't negate the property being transferred for this process to continue. So the council has some very specific conditions of the term sheet and this process. Council was very clear that the following conditions must be identified in the transfer agreement, the grant deed, and some also are listed in the draft conditions of the CUP. So the construction and use is only for a children's museum. The city council made that very clear in developing that term sheet. That a parking agreement with Pleasant Valley Recreation Park District must be attained. That agreement has been drafted. Both parties have reviewed it. It is going to the PVRPD board on November 3rd. And that parking agreement will expand the parking spaces by 21 additional parking spaces to supplement the existing spaces. The council's condition also required that this was allowable subject to the compliance of CEQA and the approval of entitlements and issuing of required permits. The council was very clear that the city may reacquire the property if any of the following conditions occurred, that there was no continued progress. So a continued progress is not being made in the development project. That the property is, the use of the property is not approved by the city, or there's no use. For example, the museum closes for a matter of time without a reopening. That would be considered a no use. The city must first approve future transfers only for a children's museum. So the agreement and the grant deed are very specific that the city needs to be involved in the future transfer of a children's museum. For example, if Kidstream would like to transfer to another nonprofit that would continue as a children's museum, the city would need to be involved in that process. As described in the agenda report, this project includes interior improvements to the existing building to provide indoor exhibit space, a museum shop, classrooms, a maker space, offices, restrooms, and a grab-and-go food service area. And approximately 19,000 square feet of the grass turf will be converted into an outdoor exhibit area enclosed by a 6-foot high block wall. And in your agenda report, that exterior improvements, including the 6-foot high block wall, is the most visible upgrade that you're going to see from the exterior. The use of the property for a children's museum is consistent with the general plan. The project was determined to be categorically exempt. And as part of that CEQA review, a traffic impact study and a noise study was conducted.
The use of the property for the Children's Museum is compatible with the existing surrounding uses, such as the Boys and Girls Club and the Bob Kildee Community Park to the south. The use is compatible with the site, converting the building to what was once used as a public library, and at least since 2018, might have been sooner, but earlier, but at least since 2018 has been used, although in a limited way, in the same manner which it will be permanently used as a children's museum. Construction is indicated in the schedule of performance as part of one of the exhibits in the agenda report, is expected to be conducted in 2 phases. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Shanklin, who can provide additional information on the community engagement that was conducted, the exhibit overview, and to discuss the construction plans and the fundraising status.
Mr. Mayor and council members, I can't tell you how deeply appreciative I am, include city staff. I'd just like to take a moment and ask the entire Kidstream team just to stand to be recognized, because while I'm up here speaking, they're the ones that have done so much work and have inspired me through the process. So thank you all, and thank you all for your support of the project. I'd like to give a brief update on the project, and We'll jump right on. So covering topics of community engagement, exhibit overview, our schedule of performance, the construction plans overview, and our fundraising status. So first, community engagement, we really took a multi-pronged approach. We created a list of community advisors. I won't go through the entire list, but suffice it to say that there are many of the people in the community who are very well respected who could give us the expertise that we really desire to have on the project. We also held an event called Kids Dream of Kidstream, where we had children come out and share with us their vision for the future museum, what kinds of experiences they wanted to see, and then we incorporated those plans into our exhibit and programs plan. We also have a whole number of museum stakeholders throughout the community. Great example is we met with the Children's Development Resources to really talk about how might Kidstream support the important work that's being done in Head Start programs throughout the county. And then we also held 2 community focus groups, in particular for our neighbors, to present the project and then find out really what were the concerns that they might have so that we can incorporate those into the plan. And a very specific example of how we responded to the community was we had a number of folks that really expressed a desire to have an increase in programming and exhibits, in particular for special needs families, and then we made that action clear. So here is the short list of the community advisors. Again, many people in the community who we esteem and wanted value and opinions on. The image of the Kids Dream of Kidstream, this was the core council of volunteers who helped us put it on. Jackie Hinojosa of CDR, and then some of the images around community engagement. Our exhibit overview is, we're really planning on doing this in 2 phases. Phase 1 is the construction that would coincide with grand opening, and phase 2 would be down the road when we deem that it would be necessary to include expanded parking. So small, I know you probably have to put like your micro readers on for this, but suffice it to say that the blue section is really represents 75% of the museum's attendance capacity. And so we will open with those, and then the fuchsia section would be the phase 2 expansion. This is an image that we're very proud of. We again took the input from the children, incorporated this into an outdoor exhibit. This is 19,000 square feet of outdoor space. And this represents what is really so unique about Ventura County. We have the Pacific Ocean, we have agriculture, the beach, we have the far right is a representation of the old fire watchtowers in the community. So we're very proud of this, and we think this is going to create a deeply engaging experience where we can educate and inspire children. This is a very quick overview of what we anticipate our indoor plan to look like. This will be much more stream-based, which is science, technology, reading, engineering, the arts, and math. One of the things that I'm especially excited about is in the very center, we will have a dynamic 2,500 square foot space where we can incorporate new and encouraging topics that we need to address, like climate change and like engineering. We've been very proud to work with partners like the U.S. Navy to really have some dynamic future plans. Our scheduled performance, I will not go over every one of these in detail, but I will highlight a couple of key dates. We do anticipate closing our schematic architectural design actually by the end of the week and entering directly into the design development phase, where we'll really get much more detail about what the needs of the building are. We anticipate going into phase 1 construction sometime in the range of May 2023 and wrapping up sometime in December 2023 or the very beginning of the following year. We will have a series of soft openings so that we can test operational capacity. And one of the things I'm especially proud of is that we'll be working with local Title I schools to invite them in to help us test the facility so that they're critical, important partners. And then we anticipate closing out the capital campaign sometime around the spring of 2024. Phase 2 construction, again, would be enacted when there are a couple of key triggers that would be in place. A little bit about our construction plans. We are working on a plan to really do what we need to do to get the museum open as soon as possible, because we know as a result of COVID that we have hundreds of thousands of kids who really need this kind of social, emotional, educational, inspiring experience. In addition, this is a rendering of what we anticipate our opening museum will look like, just in terms of the entryway, but bright, airy, very much on brand, and promoting families. So our fundraising status, really, we are currently in a $2.5 million capital campaign. As you all know, campaigns are dynamic. That number could go up depending on some construction costs. But this will allow us to open up as soon as possible and not sacrifice the quality of the guest experience. To date, we've secured over $1.2 million in gifts and pledges towards that $2.5 million goal. And I'm very proud to say that we have had our largest gift to date within this last year that we do anticipate finding a match for. We're in discussion with a number of local companies, and we're very proud that several Ventura County-based organizations have invested in the project to then turn around and present that as a matching grant to the entire community to try to close out that campaign, which we anticipate wrapping up by the spring of 2024. So that is a very quick presentation. Again, I want to express my deep appreciation to the council, city staff, and our board and wonderful supporters for the amazing opportunity to educate and inspire the children of our community.
Mayor, members of the City Council, we would, if council approves and authorizes the city manager to execute the agreement, then we would move forward with opening escrow as soon as tomorrow for a 45-day period with looking at a close of escrow on December 12th, 2022. So with that, I know that you may have questions for us. We're here to answer.
All right. And yes, we do. Mr. Kildy, you want to lead us off?
Yes, as long as you're here, I just have a question. Are you in a position to start construction before the capital campaign closes out?
The short answer is yes.
Okay. And I've been concerned about the parking there, and I've had several questions and, deliberations and whatnot. Not having enough parking would probably be a good thing, because that means in some ways, because you're really super successful, but not so good in other ways. And I'm very concerned with the neighbors there that the worst thing that can happen is, have an issue that comes up with the parking. So, It's not really a question, it's more of a statement for me. I know staff is working on this and you continue to work on this, but that is a concern. To be fair, it's a concern at a lot of other places in my mind as well. But let's keep that in mind and make sure that we have enough capacity there. And I'm hoping it's going to be super successful. I have every indication that it will be. And I do support this, but I do have, some concerns about parking, and I just want you to know that and continue to work on that and make sure that we, I always believe that it's better to nip this in the bud, to get it earlier rather than later on this. So really, work really hard on the several issues, but at this point, particularly in my mind, the potential for a parking issue there.
Yes, sir. Well, so to that point, provide comment back. One of the things that we will plan to do is provide online ticketing so that we can control the flow of traffic to some extent. And I'm also intrigued with the idea of creating a community advisory group so that we can then learn about the issues that may arise early and address them appropriately. Thank you for that concern.
Thank you.
Additional questions?
Comments when we get to it.
All right, we're short on questions, but I know we have lots of comments. I'm going to start with some public comment. So I'm going to take them as they came to me. Brian Yee. And for those who are going to speak, you have 3 minutes. You have a clock beneath me. I have a clock beneath you. Once you start, that'll count down. At 1 minute, it'll turn yellow. Just continue on through. Don't let it interrupt you. And then at 0, I'll just simply ask that you conclude your comments so we can move on to the next person.
Thank you. My name is Brian Yee. I am Kidstream Children's Museum's newest board member, but I'm also not new to Kidstream. My wife and I are raising 2 young girls here in Camarillo, age 3 and almost 5. Almost is very important to her. We talk to her right now. Here in Camarillo, we came to learn about the museum during the pandemic. Like many others, we were finding ourselves trying to find something for our kids to do while we both tried to work from home amidst the chaos. And what started with us trying to find something to help out, it's just how we stumbled upon the streaming content that Michael and others were providing in a pivot moment, then led to our first on-site experience when we went to the vision room in Kidstream for one of our daughter's friends at daycare birthday parties. That then led to my first conversation with Christy Ackle, and I'll never forget that conversation, which is when the light bulb moment went off for me. Kidstream Children's Museum will have an impact on generations of children, not only when they walk through the hallways that Michael showed us there in the future, but when the museum comes to them. And the amazing thing is that story is already unfolding if you followed the story of Kidstream through their outreach efforts that have affected 45,000 children since inception. Too often, experiential learning is only available to those of families of means who can take their children to museums that are a far distance away, which is the current state today, having to drive 60 minutes in either direction. Furthermore, we also know that a child's life trajectory can be changed through early stream experiences, which is why Kidstream is committed to having an impact on those children. We know that there are 45,000 lives that have already been impacted, and we look forward to having an impact on the 200,000 lives that live within 30 minutes of Kidstream's site. I literally shake with excitement when I imagine a moment 10 years down the line where my daughters are teenagers, which is kind of freaky, but then also realizing that at that point, they'll have grown up learning alongside their neighbors, their friends from school, their classmates, and that they'll have had a part in making and bringing the full vision of Kidstream to life. My daughter was really upset that I wasn't able to put her down tonight, but when I told her that I was going to talk about Kidstream with friends of the city, she was excited about that. I look forward to the fact that she maybe one day as a high schooler will be volunteering there and being a part of what we are doing together tonight by taking a step forward and making the full vision a reality. And so we have an opportunity here to invest in the future of all children across Ventura County. And I know I speak on behalf of Kidstream's board, its staff, and our amazing volunteers that I say when we have your support and the engagement of this community that we feel confident and ready to take the next steps forward towards opening this much-needed resource for all children in our area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Christy Ackle, you are up, and Mr. John Finch, you are on deck.
All right. When this project began as an idea, I didn't need readers to read anything. It's been a long journey. And my 3 daughters were 4, 2, and about 6 months old. Today, they're 13, 11, and 9. And while this project has outgrown them, while they've grown up, I couldn't imagine a better life lesson to teach them than to persist for the greater good of your community. Not to mention the civics lessons learned by coming out to witness history being made at meetings like this. One of my favorite quotes of all time, and especially when it comes to Kidstream, is credited to anthropologist Margaret Mead, in which she stated, "Never underestimate the power of a small group of committed people to change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever has." Although I have to say that the original small group, or as our original founding board members affectionately referred to it as our kitchen table board, have grown to a mighty upswelling. In fact, I think we have quorum tonight. This is really exciting. Over the years, and I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge everyone here tonight from our board, past and present, our staff, our volunteers, our donors, our families, and champions throughout and beyond the community, as well as the many who have been part of this project, who are wishing us well from home, and to you, the City Council and staff, who early on recognized the potential of this project. Even as a fledgling 501c3, you allowed for us to fulfill our mission from a central hub. That was critical. And today, confirming that decision, which was a great leap of faith 4 years ago, and today we stand at the precipice of breaking ground on what will become a major destination for this great city, a city that I'm proud to call home. Thank you for believing in an idea early on and through unprecedented challenges that ultimately emphasize the deep need for a resource like Kidstream that has already impacted tens of thousands of lives for the better. Thank you for trusting us and giving us an opportunity to increase that impact exponentially through being part of this small group of committed people changing the world for the better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. John Finch, and that's the last comment card I have, and I'll ask anyone else from the audience who wants to speak after.
Hello. My name is John Finch, and I've been a resident of Camarillo my entire life. Some of my earliest memories in education were going to the old Camarillo Library building and checking out a book with my mom. I find it incredibly fitting that this former library building that was a cornerstone of education in our community is the future site of Kidstream. Under Kidstream's leadership, I'm excited to see it become another bastion of education for future generations of children in our county. As I grew up, I stayed in Camarillo throughout my education, eventually receiving my teaching credential from CSUCI, and I now teach math and science at University Preparation Charter School, which is about 1,000 feet that way in what was my old 4th grade classroom. During my 8 years of teaching, I've had the opportunity to partner with Kidstream and see them in action multiple times. They've come to our school for a program called STEMposium in the past, and I had the opportunity to attend several of them. Kidstream paired with us multiple years in which they would pack dozens of interactive, hands-on, inquiry-based activities geared to K-8 students and bring these activities to our school. On the last day of the event, we would invite a large number of students to come explore these activities for free. And although it was years ago, I can still remember the way kids' faces lit up as they had the opportunity to explore, play, and ask questions about the phenomena that was occurring before their eyes. I saw these young children transform into junior scientists in front of me. Kidstream takes the right approach to education, in my opinion. They don't explain what's happening in an activity right away. They allow students to play first, develop their own theories, and discuss with their peers. As a math and science teacher, I strongly feel that Kidstream will add a much-needed educational resource to our community. Many of the students I serve as a teacher do not have the resources or time to drive to Santa Barbara's Moxie or the Discovery Cube in Los Angeles. A local museum such as Kidstream will give many of our underserved population an opportunity to play, explore, research, and get a taste of the stream's subjects in an incredibly engaging and enriching way that they may not have the opportunity to do elsewhere. Kidstream will help our schools save money on field trips by providing a richer educational experience in our own backyard, cutting down on bus fees to distant destinations. I've known about Kidstream as an educator for 6 to 7 years now, and have been thrilled to watch as concept art is posted online or a new exhibit idea is shared. However, since that time, I've become a father to 2 little girls, Marigold and Juniper. They were 3 years old and 3 months old, respectively. And as a father to these girls, seeing Kidstream become a reality is now more important to me than ever. As I'm sure many of you are aware, young girls have not historically been given a fair opportunity in STEM-related fields. And although improving, there's still a significant gender gap in these career fields today. I look forward to giving my daughters a leg up at Kidstream Children's Museum in Camarillo as we make family memories, interact with enriching exhibits, and share my love of math and science with them in a place designed to be accessible for young children, bring families and community together, and foster a spirit of discovery in them. Thank you for investing in our kids.
Thank you very much. At this time, I don't have any more comment cards. Would anyone from the audience like to come and give an impromptu public comment? If not, all right, I will turn it over to my colleagues for discussion, deliberation. Yes, Mr. Kildee, you want to lead us off?
Just want to make a comment. I've been up here, and I'll make it really brief. I've been up here a while, and when you folks first came to us, I thought, wow, that's a really great idea. How in the world are they going to be able to raise that amount of money? Well, that was then, this is now, and I want to commend you for really stepping up, because I believe it's a segment of our population that's underserved. And this is going to go a long way to really, not only that population, but older folks like me kind of like that kind of stuff too from time to time. Kind of stimulates me. But I think it'd be it's going to be a great asset. I remember hearing about what potential uses for that facility there, and they were far-reaching, shall we say. But this is by far, in my opinion, the best use of this building, and I'm going to support it.
Mrs. Graven?
Yes, I can. I used to take who's now 12, my 12-year-old grandson to the Children's Museum in Oxnard. And he thought the spaceship there and the helicopter and a few other things were really great. And as he got a little bit older, 9 years ago, I took him to the Boston Children's Museum. And then 7 years ago, I took him to, must have been Megan's museum in Anchorage. Isn't that where she came from? The Children's Museum in Anchorage is part of the Anchorage Museum. And he loved that. And by that time, I was hoping that something would be able to come that was a little bit bigger and better than the Oxnard Museum. And I'm not criticizing that in any way, because it certainly filled a function for a good number of years. And as time went on, we heard something about this museum, and you people came and talked to us. We visited the Discovery Cube in the Valley. We visited the Moxie when it first opened. And we visited Mr. Shanklin's other museum in Pasadena. And children's museums are really something exciting. They provide a lot of things, not just for girls, by the way. Boys are welcome too. So now he's going to be pretty old when this one opens. But I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old grandson. That's why I'm interested in boys. And they're going to enjoy this one as well as other ones that I've already introduced them to. And I'm really looking forward to the opening of this and being able to take Ben and Daniel to this museum and tell him this is something that these people made happen, but the city also helped a great deal. And that's what this is all about, the city helping you make it happen. So I'm going to be happy to support this tonight. And I've waited a long time for it.
All right, Ms. Intentional?
I'm just probably going to be repeating the same sentiments, but I have, Christy, you said that it was a leap of faith. It wasn't for me, because I knew you, and I had already seen the people that you had sucked in so effectively, though, that weren't just talking. You were walking the walk and doing the work, and it was seen and it was felt. And so I've always had that confidence that this was going to get to this point. I'm thrilled that we have people in our community that are willing to work this hard to make something happen. That speaks volumes to our residents, and I'm really proud to be part of a council and city staff that is helping this come to fruition. So thank you for all your work and absolutely supporting this.
Mr. Tremblay.
Yeah, I think what Susan and Charlotte and Kevin have articulated is absolutely right. I fully agree with it. So I enthusiastically support the project, but I just have a couple of observations. The first is, I think what the board and the volunteers and the staff and others too, I'm thinking of Merrill Chase, I'm thinking of a lot of other people who have contributed to this. This is the model of how to do something right. And it is a tremendous benefit for our community, but the amount, two things, the amount of the commitment and the amount of work and forethought and engagement, both with respect to the community and its children, has been extraordinary. And I really want to compliment you on it. It's truly been extraordinary. And the second point, and I'll be quick, and that is that it's exciting to see this museum as so highly reflective of our community and our geographic area. The exhibits are informed by our community. The exhibits are informed by our geographic areas. So again, great compliments to all of you who made this happen, and I'm fully in support of it, and I want to thank you for all of your, I trust that this is, I know that this has involved thousands and thousands of hours of work, so thank you.
And I'll try to compliment without seeming too repetitive. So this is probably one of the easiest decisions of the entire night. There's so much said, there's so much emphasis put on maybe stages of one's later life, high school and college. We tend to gloss over and not give enough focus on those first, let's say 10 years, or those really young years. That's where you establish kind of the trajectory of a kid's life, where they're going to go in life, what they're going to be interested in, it's just the direction. It's all about exposure and enlightening them and giving them an opportunity just to test things out, to test themselves out, to get a feel for what perks their interests and what enlightens them. We don't have enough in our community. We don't have enough of that in our country. And this is something that's certainly going to help fill that void. It's not just going to be a resource for Camarillo. It's going to be, I know it's going to be a resource for the entire county. Camarillo lies kind of geographically, I like to think, at the center of Ventura County. And I think this will very much lie at the center of the hearts and the minds of the kids throughout Ventura County. You can do a lot. You can achieve a lot in inspiring a young person. And this is genuinely a grassroots and bootstrapped effort from our own community. And that's what makes it so easy of a decision. When you see so many people here in the audience, and I understand, I know all the other individuals in the community that support this effort and have played, not only lent their time and their money, and in many cases sweat and maybe a little bit of blood in helping with building some of those exhibits. It's been a genuine, it's been an amazing effort, and this is just the start. And I think what Mr. Kildee said, that I can't find a greater use for this building than to use it for this purpose, a purpose of inspiration, and for so many in our community, throughout our region. We talked about investment earlier. This is a pretty terrific investment, and one that will pay dividends not only for our community, but in the lives of so many children who step inside this, what I think is going to be just a wonderland So, yes, with that, you read my mind?
And with thanks also to city staff, who I know
Yes.
has worked
Yes.
very hard on this, and I neglected to mention them, so I wanted to thank city staff on this. I would like to move recommended items 1 and 2.
Second.
All right, quickest motion and second of the night. Please vote. And that passes unanimously. Well, thank you very much, everyone. You- We're gonna continue on with our more mundane yet exciting. Unless
stick
you,
around for history.
if you want to stick around for oral communications, Mrs. Craven will impart some Camarillo history, but
They don't want to hear it.
actually, I will ask the council, actually, this, I guess will this largely depend on Mrs. Craven. Do you have a rather large thing tonight? Either I'll call this and hold it over oral communications to 7 o'clock? Or would you
Probably
like?
better,
Probably better?
because I don't know how much the others have.
Does staff have a
Because we have
recommendation?
10 minutes till we're going to break, right?
Yeah. I don't mind holding it over till 7.
Yeah, we can certainly hold it over.
Yeah, okay. We'll hold this over to 7. I don't want to break it up. I don't want to interrupt Mrs. Craven's history lesson. So we'll hold oral communications at 7 o'clock. At this point, city council, we'll just stand in recess. If not, we can recess back into closed session possibly for a brief moment. And then we'll reconvene at 7 o'clock. right. We've got everyone, so we're going to reconvene the meeting of the Camarillo City Council for our 7 o'clock agenda, which is not much. It's rather barren. And we're going to start with public comments. I do have a few comment cards. I have one non-verbal comment card, which I'll pass amongst my colleagues up here on the dais. So I will read the comment cards in the order in which I have them. Timothy McGarry, you are up, sir. I know we've spoken before. Really quick rundown, 3 minutes, it'll count down. Once it gets to 1 minute, you'll get a beep and a yellow. Just continue on until your time concludes, and then we'll turn it over to the next person.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Good evening, City Council members. Once again, I find myself bringing a copy of the California and United States Constitution, and I really hope you take notice of this. I'm not going to get the same 36 minutes my paid counterpart, Jason Havelka, got, but I'll do my best. Last City Council, he came up here and for 36 minutes justified his $237,000 a year salary. I watched in awe and disgust as this very City Council applauded and thanked him as he described communist China social credit practices of being logged every time you go to a one-stop to decide who gets services and who does not. Especially considering that my family has gone to one-stops that have been canceled before. Also, Jason referred to us as consumers, and so I guess we're getting pigeonholed into we're either consumers or refusers. As far as consumption goes, the average American household uses 300 gallons of water a day. My family of 7 uses an average of 38. The average American household uses 30 to 50 kilowatt hours per day of energy. My family survives on 4.7 kilowatt hours of energy per day. Maybe instead of alienating this population, there are things that society can learn from those who live on little means. At 36 minutes and 20 seconds into the presentation, Mayor Mulchay stated, and I quote, "Sheltered or not, I guess Camarillo is a great place to live." Now, either you've been discounting mine and my family's accounts of how it is to live here in Camarillo, or, I can take this in the best possible light, and the mayor of Camarillo has invited the homeless of Ventura County into a great, wonderful place to live. Camarillo Acorn in 2022 put the number of homeless at 49. On the streets I talk about, in the community I talk about, on the 22nd of this month, there were 33 individuals sleeping out there. On the 21st of this month, there were 31 individuals. This accounts for 67% of the stated homeless population of Camarillo, though we have not seen Jason Havelka in a month and a half. As far as the last attempt to come disrupt our community, when they chalked tires, how would you people feel if I put information gathering devices on your homes? Have a great night.
Thank you very much, Mr. McGarry. Is it Alicia or Alicia? Say it again? Aloysia. And if you don't mind pulling the microphone down a little bit so you can speak into it, we can hear you really well.
Good evening, council members. This week, Dad could not come to church for fear the police would take our home. You guys are damaging our family. I used to be so joyful I didn't even cry at being sick. But now almost every sad thing affects me emotionally. By the way, I watched last city council with Mom and Dad, and I noticed Havelka got 36 minutes. As for us, well, we get 3 minutes. And Havelka, don't bother us anymore. We get enough help from real friends. Good day, council members.
Thank you very much. Bellarue, you were next.
I don't feel like the cops are doing their job. Actually, they're doing what they're supposed to be stopping. They're chalking people's tires. Last Sunday, Dad had to stay home, so we had a house to come back to. I think if you were homeless, you wouldn't like if the cops were threatening your home. I hope you understand. I would like to have a house to live in with my family and have a nice life with my family. Thank you.
Thank you, Bellarue. And Patricia McGarry.
I feel a little redundant speaking again about the different areas that the city has set aside for the homeless population that are living in their automobiles. And then after the last time we spoke, I went down to the other area that is off of Aviador. And I noticed that almost half the street, on each of those streets, the curb was painted red. And already in the area where we're at, we have the businesses complaining about the eyesores that are humans trying to live. And now, with them doing all the red curbs over there, where do you think everybody else is going to go? To the same area. So again, we will have police showing up, trying to stop us from causing trouble by trying to live. And they expect us to move every 72 hours. When people who have never lived in an RV, ridden in an RV, when you decide to move, you have to pack everything away. We are a family of 7. We have, schooling things. I homeschool. And everything has to be packed away, so it ends up taking a full day of our time. So every 3 days, we're expected to take a day out of our time to move so that we don't make the business owners in our community feel uncomfortable. We have had business owners in the area where we are staying who came out to speak about us, and others who have provided services to us because they care about our family and they respect the fact that we are just trying to live. So I'm thinking maybe it's just confusion because you don't understand that we are just people. So I would like to share with you, we are a family of 7 trying to quietly make our dream of freedom a reality. A man who needs surgery but can't recover in a car. A young black couple with a family to raise. A retired engineer. A cyclist training for the Olympics. A freedom-fighting mechanic. A woodworker. A student. A teacher laid off due to the pandemic. We're people, just like you guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. McGarry. And that concludes all the comment cards I have. Would anyone else like to provide public comment at this time? Seeing none, we are going to conclude public comments, and we're going to take up the last item from our 5 o'clock agenda, and that is oral communications. And I'm going to pick on Mr. Tremblay to go first.
Pick on.
Okay. No, that's fine. You're not picking. Meetings attended, October 13, a water issues meeting, the city of Oxnard. October 14, I had for the MetroLink Board of Directors, I had an executive committee meeting and a contract operations and maintenance safety committee meeting in person in LA, which was great, meeting in person. On October 19th, the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee with the mayor. And then also That evening, I attended the Climate Action Plan Safety Element Update Workshop. Ms. Santangelo was there as well. On the 22nd of October, last weekend, I took a facilities tour for the Camarillo Water District. I had known quite a bit about Camarillo's water facilities, but had never really had the chance to go out and visit them, and I was impressed. They do an excellent job. And on October 26th, today, I had a drought task force meeting. Two quick announcements. On Saturday, November 5, is the Ventura County Farm Day, which is, I think it's the 10th year that this has happened. Maybe it's not the 10th year, but it's actually, it says 10th annual. How about that? It's sponsored by SEAG, which is a 501c3 composed of growers, ranchers, and agricultural groups. And it's open to more than 20 Ventura County farms, ranches, and ag organizations open their doors. You can go visit them. It's from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And the theme of the day is Meet All the Hands That Feed You. It's completely self-guided. You drive yourself at your own pace to any of the locations. There are locations all over the county, including locations that are nearby. And so for those of you who might be listening, go to VenturaCountyFarmDay.com. That's VenturaCountyFarmDay.com, and you can get a list of all of the ranches, et cetera, that are open. And it will be, you really do experience a day of agricultural activities and tours and learn a great deal. And the last is, I talked about this at a prior council meeting. There's a notice here for calling all Ventura County grandparents. This is a group that has been established or is being established by one of our local residents who's also working with the Sheriff's Department and to bring in grandparents who can help with talking about grandchildren and what further we can do to protect our grandchildren. And people can email Greg and Judy B, or GregandJudib @gmail.com. And that's Judy Beliciano. And that's it. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'm going to turn to Ms. Santangelo to go next.
Okay, for meetings attended, October 13th was the Airport Authority. And earlier on October 13th, it was my time to do story time at the library. And I had a great time. October 19th, CPA Executive Committee and the Climate Resiliency Workshop in the evening. October 20th, State of the City. October 22nd, I went to the Cal State University Channel Islands President's Dinner. It was really wonderful, and it rained for 20 minutes on us. And nobody got up, nobody ran. We all sat there. It was great. I think everybody was really happy to be together. And then earlier today, the CPA Finance Committee. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kildee?
The wrong button, I voted.
Oh, but did you vote yes or no? We can't tell from down here.
All right. October 20th, I attended a VCOG Administrative Committee meeting, and let's see, today, was it yesterday? My days are getting confused. There was an investment committee meeting that I attended as well. I think it was yesterday, actually. We're going to have the Finance Committee meeting on Friday, so that's what.
But you'll have to announce that next time.
Yeah, I'll have to announce that, yeah. And this announcement, hopefully tomorrow, we're going to have the VCOG, annual meeting. Hopefully, most, if not all of you, I haven't seen the guest list yet, but hopefully most, if not all of you will attend. We're going to have a comedian, and it's not going to be the chairman, so that's probably good. But it should be a good time. It's going to be at the Ranch House, so look forward to that. So that's all I have.
Thank you very much. I'll run down mine really quick. October 13th, Airport Authority with the Vice Mayor. October 19th, Transportation Infrastructure Committee with Mr. Tremblay. October 20th, delivered to the State of the City. For those who didn't watch it, The union is strong. October, also later, October 20th, I attended the Economic Development Collaborative Board meeting. And that was all I had there. I have one suggestion in light of some of our public comments, and that is if we can, from time to time, I do know that we have young children come and present. If we can have a little stepping stool or something like that. Oh, do we have, is there one there? Oh, it was there. Okay, all right. They just didn't utilize it. Okay, never mind. That is all I had. So we will turn it over to Mrs. Craven.
So I attended the State of the City last Thursday, and I got to tell you, I thought it was very good. It was in-depth, it gave a lot of really good information, and you done good. You done good. On Monday, I toured the Boys and Girls Club New Edition, and on Tuesday morning, I attended the Investment Committee. So that gets me down to the history lesson, and it's about street and median and parkway landscaping. So if you ask visitors what they like best about Camarillo on their first visit, the first thing out of their mouths is how beautiful it is to drive around. The streets are paved without potholes. The medians and parkways are landscaped and well taken care of, and there's always something blooming. It hasn't always been that way. When I moved to Camarillo in 1975, there were only 3 arterial streets with landscaping. Ponderosa had, what else? Ponderosa pines scattered in the medians. But at that time, Ponderosa was not a 4-lane street going all the way through from Las Posas to Las Posas. Beginning on the west at Las Posas, it was 4 lanes until just a little bit past Daly Plaza, when it narrowed to 2 lanes. Then it opened up to 4 lanes again about City Hall, and it narrowed again after Arneal to 2 lanes, abruptly ending in 11 Field at the intersection of Shepherd. But then it took up again at Cyprian by Dos Caminos School with a drain ditch in the median. Arneal had no median trees, but it had ficus trees lining the parkways. North of what we call Vaughn Center, at that time we called it the Grant Center, then the Kmart Center, now the Vaughn Center. At that time it narrowed from 4 lanes to 2. Carmen Drive was 4 lanes all the way from Ventura Boulevard to Las Posas Road, and it had Canary Island pines and grass in the medians. All these trees were due to the efforts of Tweety Rouse and her pal Helen Ahorn and their Camarillo Beautiful, which was part of Lady Bird Johnson's America Beautiful campaign. And quite a few of those trees were planted before Camarillo Incorporated. By 1980, many letters to the editor of the Camarillo Daily News called Camarillo the Walled City because of all the slump stone and cinder block walls lining our streets. Excuse me. In 1982, Tad Bowen and Sandy Bush ran for council on platforms of beautifying our streets and making them safer. After they were elected, the city hired the Oak Collaborative in Thousand Oaks to prepare the street, median, and fairway, I think that's Parkway, landscape master plan, which was adopted in January 1985. With the exception of Ventura Boulevard, it covered arterial streets west of Callegas Creek, as well as Upland Road and Santa Rosa Road. Pardee, the main eastern Camarillo developer, landscaped the arterials within its Mission Oaks development. In the meantime, a federal grant was obtained for sidewalk replacement on Arneal. Those ficus trees, shallow root systems, had buckled sidewalks and the street, creating a hazard for walkers. Crews tore up the sidewalks and curbs on both sides of Arneal, cutting the roots away and replacing that's on both sides, the street side and the sidewalk side, and replacing the sidewalks. That was great until the first Santa Ana wind came along and it toppled the trees. It was a well-intentioned project that hadn't been thought through completely. When I replaced Tad Bowen on the council in 1986, and as development occurred to pay for street widening, Ponderosa had been extended to 4 lanes from Las Posas on the west all the way to Las Posas on the east, and Arneal had become 4 lanes from Ventura Boulevard to Las Posas Road as various subdivisions were built. However, landscaping was not extended with the streets. Implementation of the master plan began in 1987 with new parkway and median landscaping and irrigation on Ponderosa from the eastern intersection with Las Posas up to Temple, as well as parkways on Temple from Ponderosa north to Los Nogales Street. The Ponderosa project lowered the drainage channel and covered it with median landscaping. Later that year, we discovered the financial losses, so the projects were delayed for a while, but in time, parkways and medians along other arterials were brought into conformance with the landscape master plan. Within 5 years, the streets and parkways were looking pretty good, but those cinder block walls and slumpstone walls were calling out to graffiti artists. In 1992, our cost to remove graffiti was more than $62,000. Bill Little, the city manager, loved landscaping, didn't like the walls, and hated graffiti. He soon proposed that we plant vines at the base of the stone fences, which would complete the beautification of the streetscapes and also get rid of graffiti on the non-matching paint squares that cover up graffiti. Paint won't work on vines, he told us. Temple didn't have medians because it is the site of the band competition before the Christmas parade. But we planted a lot of vines there, and I do remember one time driving by and seeing a lot of silver leaves. Nobody could ever read what that graffiti artist painted on those leaves. And I think they got the hint, because I don't ever remember seeing more paint on leaves. Las Posas was one of the later streets to be addressed. When it came time to construct the median west of Temple, there was a lot of discussion with a compromise. The council designated Las Posas Road as a parade street, specifying that the median on Las Posas between Temple and Charter Oak would not start until just about even with Village Square Shopping Center, which allows bands to make a full left gate turn from Temple into the parade, the Christmas parade. At that time, business owners on the north side of the street in the block to the west of Arneal protested that installing medians would prevent their customers from getting in and out of their parking lots. So we changed the plan to allow only striped medians in that section of Las Posas Road. The north-south part of Las Posas Road was addressed at the non-stop urging of Violette Palmer, a realtor who reinvented Camarillo Beautiful, mainly for the purpose of making that part of Las Posas Road more beautiful. The last section to be completed was on the western side of Daly Plaza when they did some rehabilitation to the shopping center. Arneal Road itself was done again with Catalina Island pines replacing the ficus trees, sidewalks replaced again, and median landscaping installed. Santa Rosa Road was the most recent to be addressed. Carmen was refitted with drought-tolerant landscaping. Now, Ventura Boulevard was a completely different story. About 1980, well before we formed the redevelopment district, the city council decided to improve parking and beautify the streets. The plans didn't work at all, so they decided just a few years later to rip it all out and install planters to separate some of the parking places. Oh my. The curbs and planters were not a standardized height above street level. I'm not sure why they were designed as they were, but some planter dividers were so high that people who parked next to them could not open their car doors, and some curbs were so high that people could not step onto them. When we implemented the redevelopment plan, we tore out the gutters and sidewalks and planters for a third time. And believe me, council members drove home that we wanted something workable that would not get a lot of complaints from people who wanted to shop in Old Town. And I think the designers did a pretty good job. Village at the Park was developed much later. Medians and parkways are owned and maintained by a homeowners association, and that was the first area to be done that way. Additionally, purple pipes were laid during construction, so it was the first and still the only area town whose medians and parkways are irrigated with recycled water. The street, median, and parkway landscaping master plan is still in effect. My slight criticism has been that it calls for bougainvilleas in some of the medians, and I never thought they were appropriate because they sprawl out so much and constantly have to be cut back. And they grow large spikes as they age. However, I agree with visitors that the plan has created a very beautiful city. Before long, you're going to be looking at the street tree projects again. Already, we've cut back trees, replaced trees, curbs and sidewalks along Daly between Las Posas and Calle La Roda, and other sidewalks are being raised by the Catalina Island pines. When this comes back to you, be sure to ask questions. Make sure every time the designer has stood out there and told us, oh yeah, this time we're going to have irrigation that goes down so far the roots will never come up and buckle the sidewalks. Well, that hasn't been true, so dig down deeper, make sure the irrigation is improved over what has previously been installed. I encourage you to look at other species of trees with deeper root systems that won't buckle the sidewalks as quickly.
Thank you very much. I see our Director of Public Works but just ate that whole thing up.
Well, I'd like to thank him for getting me the dates on some of this stuff.
All right. With that, that concludes our agenda items. At this point, we're going to recess back into closed session, and then from there, we'll adjourn. So at this time, we'll stand in recess in a closed session.